Okay, morning everyone. We're just going to wait just a couple of minutes. We've still got lots of people to turn up. Just a couple of minutes. Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to What's the Big Idea? How to Make Your Marketing Work Harder. I'm Anthony Sims.
And I'm Steve Coxon.
Morning. I've been a designer for almost 20 years now. I started Sims Creative nearly 13 years ago now. I'm now managing director and also creative director from an art-based perspective.
And I'm associate creative director, but mainly based on the copy side.
Yeah. Just to read a little bit about Sims. We started life as a design agency, but we've kind of morphed more into something much more strategic and focused entirely on the energy sector. We can help with brand, whether that's the strategic side of the brand or the visual side of the brand. Obviously, design for all sort of medium, and also marketing campaigns, whatever that marketing objective may be. This is a one-way audio today. We're happy to take questions and answers at the end. It will have to be via the text facility, which hopefully you can see. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to kick off then. What is a big idea? We'll let Steve start this.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we define what we're talking about today and when we're talking about big idea. What we're not talking about is Einstein's theory of relativity, Darwin's theory of evolution, or world-changing ideas such as that. We're talking about a big idea that's going to enable you to be noticed and communicate and resonate with your target audience. I'm going to sort of bring it back to an analogy, really. Suppose you're going to see going to a gig and you're going to see a band, and the band has already communicated and resonated with you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going. They've got their message across to you that you like their music. But it's not their music, their lyrics, their words, their appearance, their image, their whole idea. It doesn't just happen. That band has deliberately set out to create music that is going to appeal to their idea of an audience. You're part of it. That idea has worked because you're going to the gig. Let's translate that into marketing and communications activity. So in consumer terms, let's talk about, say, a big international brand, HSBC, the world's local bank. They're a global organization, but they want to be seen as operating on a local level and within local cultures. The world's local bank sums that up. Tesco, let's bring it back down to the UK. Every little helps. They're your friend when you go shopping because they know that sometimes the budgets can be tight. So they're doing their best to make sure that every little thing they can do to help you make that budget spread further. In other words, it's all about getting you noticed. It's about getting your idea over, setting you apart from the competition. And that's what our idea of a big idea is about. Anthony actually has a really good definition of it.
Yeah, I think the way I would sort of explain an idea is an overarching idea that can communicate any message via any channel for your brand or for that particular piece of communication, yeah, through any channel really. And it has to kind of it has to be sort of emotive. It has to sort of resonate. It has to be able to sort of win the hearts and minds of the consumers or your target audience. And I know some of the examples that Steve just mentioned, that most of them were consumer sort of examples, but this is totally relevant to B2B. Our stance on B2B communications is that it needs to be just as creative really, and just as emotive, even though the buying process is very different to consumers. Emotion plays a key part really. So big ideas work in B2B as well as B2C. Why does it matter? I mentioned a second ago that there's that many messages that we see now as consumers on a day-to-day basis that it's not enough just to present sort of facts and features and benefits. We've got to hook people into the communications on an emotional level.
The big idea enables you to get noticed, as I said earlier. It sets you apart. That's why it matters, because whatever industry you're in, whatever sector you're in, you are up against competition who are obviously making their own noise and competing with the noise that everybody else is making around them. It's a noisy world we live in. So having the big idea is your way of getting noticed in the first place and making sure that that message is then resonating with your target audience.
Yeah. If you've got a product that's very similar to your competitor's product, and excuse me, then you need to have some kind of competitive advantage, and your biggest sort of weapon is your brand really, and then behind that brand you need a big idea, and once the big idea has been established and it's been communicated internally, then that gives focus for all marketing efforts.
It enables you to hang lots of different messages off that one unifying big idea. Now, what we're talking about today is not new. Anybody who's most familiar with David Ogilvy will be familiar with some of the sayings that he came up with. They're all common sense ideas. Ogilvy, by the way, was a giant of advertising in the 1960s, but the same ideas that he came up with then still have relevance today. In fact, probably even more so, because whereas in that time, advertising, marketing, communications was through very few channels really. Today we're bombarded by messages from lots of different directions and lots of channels. So these ideas still apply. There's common sense. They work across the ages, across channels, across markets, across sectors. This is what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
the importance of a big idea.
The channel is almost irrelevant, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So even Ogilvy back in the 60s said, unless your advertising contains a big idea, it will pass like a ship in the night. Now,
let's bring that right up to date, though, because we're not. Some people might dismiss this as old-style thinking. Actually, it's not. It's just common sense when you're talking about communications with an audience, a customer audience, which is competing with, you're competing for their time and their ears and their eyes with everybody else.
Yeah. And just to bring that into sort of today's context, this is by no means anybody famous, but this guy runs or certainly works for a social advertising company in London, and they spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on social advertising, and they analyse everything they do to see what works and what doesn't work. But their number one bit of advice, after all their learnings, is that your creative is without a doubt the most important factor in your campaign.
And that's not an opinion. That's just based on fact, research.
Yeah. So how do you come up with a big idea? One of the most important, or the most important thing before you get to the idea is insight. Really, you need to have some insight. Steve?
Yeah. Now, what we're going to go through here is going to be familiar to anyone who's ever written a brief or read a brief, acted upon a brief, been charged with creating an ad or a campaign. First question we have to ask is, who are we talking to? Our customers, obviously, but we need to define who they are. We need to define where they are and what they think about us. We need to know what we know about them, how old they are, how much they need to spend, what industry they're in, what are they looking for, what they currently think or feel or do about our product or service. It's really basic stuff, but these simple questions, which really have quite deep answers. And unless we answer those first 3 points in detail, then we can't really start to address our fourth point, which is, what do we want them to think, feel, or do about our product or service? What do we want them to do? We know what they currently think. How do we move them to what we want them to do now? And unless we address those first 3 points, we can't answer that question. So what we have to say is, well, what makes us different? What is going to attract their attention? What is going to make us more appealing to them than the competition? But more importantly, what evidence do we actually have to support this statement? Basically, you can't go out there and simply make claims, especially these days. Customers are very savvy. Unless your claim matches the fact, which is they can research very quickly, then you're going to lose that sale.
Sometimes call it reasons to believe, don't we?
Yeah, call it reasons to believe. Whatever it is, it's evidence to support the claims that we're making.
Yeah.
And more also importantly, what are the competition doing? Because if we come up with that difference and we come up with a way of communicating in our big idea, no point going along that road if the competition are already doing it. We need to set ourselves apart and be noticed and be different.
I think where the insight comes from, that can come from different people within the business, but it can also come from, depending on the sort of size of the campaign and the budget, it can come from talking to customers or prospects or lapsed customers, but the insight is key, really.
And what we're looking for is ultimately the most compelling thing you have to say. As I say, anyone who's written a brief or read a brief will know that this is where you end up, the key proposition.
Yeah.
But the most compelling thing you have to say has to be based on our customer. You have to put ourselves in our customer's shoes. It's no point doing all that research and insight if you're basing everything you're doing on what you think the customers feel or are going to do, feel or look at you about. What you have to base it on is what the customers actually know about you. You have to know what they think rather than believe what you think. So you have to put yourself in the customer's shoes, and that actually governs the most compelling thing you have to say.
Yeah, and the big, something I'll just add to that actually is what we can't move on to coming up with a big idea until that proposition is agreed. It has to be agreed. That is the proposition. So that's what we're going to base the big idea on.
It has to be agreed by everybody who's going to be involved in this. So customer-facing people, salespeople. It has to be sold into them as the most compelling thing that we have to say right now to our customers.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we do that.
Yeah. So we've got 2 case studies today. One, this one is for a large brand, and this is for an idea for a specific campaign. And then the second example we've got is a big idea to communicate the whole brand and the whole messaging across all different channels. But this one is for a large brand, but just to communicate a specific campaign. So I'm sure you'll be familiar with Caterpillar. Their main business is construction equipment, but also they have power generation equipment as part of the business as well, gas and diesel generating sets, and also CHP. And Finning are the sole dealer, sole distributor in the UK and Ireland for Caterpillar equipment. And we were tasked with advertising their new e-commerce website that Cat in America had developed. And Cat had gone to all their territories, all their dealers, and said, we want you to promote the website to get your customers using it. So we had to come up with an overarching idea to promote the e-commerce website.
This is what it looks like today.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the whole point of this is to move people away from ordering via phone and through all the delays that might incur, and move to a streamlined process of ordering online.
Yeah.
So we were looking at what is our key proposition here. We're launching a website, basically, but it's a new e-commerce platform. And fundamentally, what we're offering here is ease. We're offering people the ability to go online 24 hours out of 7, access at that point over 60,000 Cat parts. It's about convenience. So we summed this up in just 4 words. Our big idea.
So the big idea was your online convenience store. Your gives sort of ownership on the customer. Online says where it is, excuse me. And convenience store sums up the proposition. So we thought that was quite clever to be able to sum up the whole proposition in 4 words, your online convenience store.
Especially as convenience store is a well understood concept. We all know about convenience stores.
So how do we campaign this? How do we execute this? Well, the concept that was chosen was to use e-commerce looking trolley with parts inside. And we had 4 different messages. Initially, we had 4 different messages to deliver about the e-commerce website. One was that it was safe and easy to use. One was that Finning were there at your service to look after you,
providing support.
Providing support. Another one was it was built for you, so there's certain elements of the website that you could tailor to your requirements. And the last one was plan and save.
So you could plan ahead and enter your requirements on the site, and therefore save time and money.
Yeah. So again, this is the concept that was chosen, and so we bought a trolley, made it kind of look e-commerce looking, put parts inside. The tape measure was there to kind of illustrate the made to measure aspect.
So what you've got there is a visual element that underpins the big idea, your online convenience store, and this is how we visually interpret and communicate that message.
Yeah, so this is what it looked like in terms of an advert. So the hierarchy of the information, the campaign line, well, the whole thing shouts convenience, but the campaign line, your online convenience store, at your fingertips, information, the touch of a button to help you manage your fleet and equipment more effectively. And this was sort of executed across different adverts for different messages.
And what you can see there is the way we've taken the big idea, your online convenience store, added the visual element, but then adapted that to support different messages designed to address specific needs that we needed to talk to the customers about. And promote the site as being easy to use.
And it's not, we keep sort of saying this, but it's not limited to any channel. Once you've got the idea, it's the channels, we can execute this across any channels really. So these were sort of turned into direct mail pieces, online adverts, marketing adverts. And just to show you that a good idea can have sort of legs, we were then tasked with coming up with a direct mail piece to send to top tier sort of spending customers to get them to switch online. So we sent them a personalised pop-up mailer, and we made the sort of analogy of sort of being able to sort of order quickly and get them online quickly. So we had the idea of having the trolleys racing, racing really, a race. So it said, "Hurry Andy, the race is on. Visit your very own website now to discuss the unique benefits of 24/7 online shopping for over 60,000 genuine Cat parts." And that was sent as an email shot as well. And once they landed on the website, they were greeted with a personalised landing page. So the race is on Andy, and then once they clicked on the video, we actually had a voiceover artist that sounded like Mr. Murray, and they actually greeted them personally. So we had the voiceover artist record all the first names in the entire database. So then the video showed these trolleys racing, and throughout the video it showed the features and benefits of the site. And there was an incentive as well, so save 10%, and if you can see that, but sort of personalisation on the trophy as well. And then at the end of the video, they were sort of prompted to call the free phone number to organise a demonstration. But even if they didn't call, Finning had telesales sort of calling them up and getting them online, really.
So, I mean, basically the combination of the big idea, the planning that went into where that media, those messages appeared, the personalisation of the video, it all ended up to a strong campaign which had great results. We can't show you exactly what the results were, but they were good.
Yeah. This is an Italian alternator manufacturer. They actually manufacture a core component that actually goes inside the generating set equipment. And we've been working with them for over 10 years now. And we create a big idea for them probably every 2 years. So this is the current version. Sorry, that's their product actually. That's essentially an alternator, not particularly exciting looking, but I'm sure it is to lots of genset people.
And we started with gaining insight into the business and what they wanted to achieve by coming up with a key proposition based on these factors. The Mecalti are basically a bit of a one-off. They only make one kind of product, alternators. They're independent, which is very important for their market, simply because if you're building gensets, then your choice of alternators, yes, you can buy Mecalti, but you can also buy alternators from other companies.
Cummins is the main one.
Yeah.
Stanford is the main competitor.
And they build gensets too. So in effect, you may actually be buying alternators from a competitor. So Mecalti's independence is quite an important factor. They have factories and distribution centres in every continent, so they can supply a global market. In fact, they're the world's largest independent producers of alternators. And this is a really good point. Every single employee is actually really committed to Mecalti's way of doing business. They're totally focused on alternators. And
they're one-off, aren't they?
Yeah, they're total one-off.
Yeah.
So how we sum up this in words, the big idea is that they're a unique company with unique people.
Yeah. So how do we sort of execute this visually? We decided to have two types of imagery. One was of the Mecalti staff. We commissioned a very talented photographer who works for the Times magazine, portrait photographer, and we went to Mecalti's various factories and took some very arty shots of their staff. But also we had sort of unique things to advertise different messages. So we've got the Taj Mahal here. That's a very unique building, I'm sure you agree. And that was to advertise that they're about to start manufacturing in India.
And then we take the same approach, the same visual look, the same supporting message, unique company, unique people, and spread it across all these different messages, whether delivering global support, delivering quality, manufacturing in China, manufacturing in the UK. Yeah, there's all sorts of messages hang off that unique idea, the unique company, unique people, big idea.
Yeah.
And the important point about these particular ads is that they've appeared in press, trade press, which normally would not see advertising like this.
Yeah, the sort of genset industry is very traditional. Historically, they've never had to sort of market themselves. It's not particularly a marketing-led industry, really, but more so recently. But these adverts, they stood out online and in publications.
Yeah. You flick through page after page of machines with wires sticking out of them, and then you end up with this, and you're going to notice it.
Yeah, yeah. Even down to desktop calendar, so an idea can work down to any channel, no matter how small it is. Really.
In other words, the big idea works wherever you see it from. So whatever perspective you come across that message, it's going to be consistent.
Yeah. Hopefully that gives you a good demonstration of what a big idea is, why it's important, and
how to go about making it.
Yeah, again, how to do it. We haven't invented this. This is all sort of classic advertising principles.
Yeah, we're not the first people in the world to come up with this thought, and we won't be the last. In fact, there's lots and lots of supporting information you can go to. here are just a very small selection of the many resources available.
Yeah, it's a huge subject, but these are sort of four of my favourite books, really. I particularly like, for anyone who wants to actually produce their own ideas, a technique for producing ideas is actually a process, a step-by-step process on how ideas are produced. I find it very useful over the years, not often refer to it.
Yeah, any of these would be good starting points.
Yeah. We're actually going to be delivering this via a workshop, hopefully early next year in central London. More will sort of follow on that.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. So we have got we'll add 5 minutes for questions and answers. If we don't get a chance to answer your question, then feel free to email Ruth or myself. Ruth is the one you should have
got the invitation.
Yeah, you should have the invitation from.
Yeah. So also, if there's anything that you'd rather not discuss online, I mean, just drop us a line. We can discuss it offline.
Okay. Okay. So we've got a question here from Matt. Is a big idea relevant for internal communications?
Well, yeah. Basically, I mean, your internal audience is another customer. So a big idea can work just as well for internal communications as for external communications.
Yeah.
And sorry, Neil, yes, I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, you should be able to find me on there.
Yeah, if you go to our LinkedIn page, there's adverts and things for this webinar, which has got links to Steve. So hopefully you can find them.
It should be in the email you received as well.
There's another question here, which I think is a good one. And this is not easy to answer. What's the shelf life of a big idea? It's difficult to answer that.
It's how long's a piece of string, basically. If you think on a consumer basis, British Airways, the world's favourite airline for decades. It's as long as it keeps working, I think, is the point there. And the other point to make about that is the shelf life of a big idea is probably longer than you think, because with the customers are probably only just getting used to seeing your campaign as you're getting absolutely fed up to the back teeth of it. Having spent months and weeks creating something, you're going to get very tired with it after a while, but much more easily than the customer itself. So yeah, I'd stick with it until you've got absolute evidence it's not working.
I was thinking the other day actually that I mean, I certainly haven't got bored of compared to Meerkat, which has been around for quite a few years now. But equally, I am getting quite bored of Harvey Cartel on the direct line adverts. But if it's working for them, it's working for them, really.
You've got to do it by results. If it's working, keep with it.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. How do big ideas relate to boutique consultancies and solopreneurs? Is this approach out of their reach? No, it's not. It relates to any size of business. It doesn't matter whether you're a one-man band or you're a multinational. If you're going out to talk to customers, then it's worth going through the process of insight into what customers expect or perceive from you, and treating yourself as if you're the same as a multinational. You're talking to a customer, and it's the point of view, as I think we said earlier in the webinar, is put yourself in the customer's shoes. What are they expecting from you, and how can you deliver it, and what is the most compelling message you can come up with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a crossover, I think, between sort of big idea and brand, really, what you stand for. But that's for another sort of conversation, really.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Insight.
Oh yes, so it's just, do you have to carry out the insight process for every ad? Well, no, not really. It is important that you go through the insight process for each campaign, and it's important that you check that your insight is still relevant on a regular basis, because the cut and paste temptation of when writing a brief is very strong, and when you're short of time. And if you simply cutting and pasting information that was last researched 3 or 4 years ago, then you really need to update it and review it. I think that's the point of the insight is not for every ad, but certainly for every campaign.
Yeah.
And certainly on a regular basis, simply to review the accuracy of what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's it. I think there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So thank you very much for joining us. yeah, I mean, big ideas matter. They sell.
And if there's and if there's anything at all that you really want to discuss in more detail, obviously we're limited by time here. Get in touch.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great day. Thank you.